Good evening, everybody. Please open your Bibles to the book of Hosea in the Old Testament. We mentioned last time that we're covering Hosea right after Amos because Hosea, Amos, and Isaiah were all contemporaries. And they were all during the reign, at least partly during the reign of Jeroboam II and Uzziah, king of Israel. And they're going to have a lot of overlapping themes throughout them because they were contemporaries, but each takes a little bit different angle with it. And Hosea particularly has a particular bend in the way that God's trying to communicate to the people. But the main message is, again, judgment is coming upon the house of Israel because they have been wicked, they've been unfaithful. And that's going to be the theme of Hosea, is the unfaithfulness of Israel. In Amos, we talked about the fact that the judgment was coming because they were wicked, but how did God feel about this? That wasn't brought up as much in the book of Amos as it will be in the book of Hosea.
Yeah. All right, so I think the way this might work best in some ways is we might take the first couple of chapters, first 2-3 chapters a little bit slower, read through that. I have something I want to accomplish with that. But then pretty much after that, we'll be summarizing a lot. So hopefully, we encourage you to read ahead. Hopefully you did, because we won't be reading, everything in between. So we're going to pick up in verse 2 there. So it says, when the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, go take to yourself a wife of whoredom and have children of whoredom, for the land commits great whoredom by forsaking the Lord. So he went and took Gomer, the daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. So just pause really quick. What is he being asked to do? That's right. How would that make you feel if you're Hosea? Yeah, this would be hard, right? This would be hard.
Who has a plan in life for that? I'm going to marry somebody that'll cheat on me. That's what he's handed right here. Is that's what's going to happen to you?
Yeah. What does he do? He doesn't. All right, we'll see how that turns out. So she bears him a son. Verse 4. And the Lord said to him, call his name Jezreel, for in just a little while I will punish the house of Jehu for the blood of Jezreel, and I'll put an end to the kingdom of the house of Israel. And on that day I will break the bow of Israel in the valley of Jezreel. She conceived again and bore a daughter, and the Lord said to him, call her name No Mercy, for I will no more have mercy on the house of Israel to forgive them at all. But I will have mercy on the house of Judah, and I will save them by the Lord their God. I will not save them by the bow or by the sword or by war or by horses or by horsemen. When she had weaned no mercy, she conceived and bore a son. And the Lord said, call his name Not My People, for you are not my people, and I am not your God. Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be like the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured or numbered. And in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, it shall be said to them, children of the living God. And the children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together, and they shall appoint for themselves one head, and they shall go up from the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. Okay, so she starts having children. First one, actually all three, he's told what to name them. First one name is why? That's right. So we're being reminded, and we're bringing judgment on the house of Jehu for his sin, right? Which, by the way, we just mentioned this, but who's king right now? Jeroboam II. He would have been Jehu's descendant, right? That's the last one that we have. The next child.
Hold on. Can I make a point? Yeah. So all of these names have significance in it. So Jezreel, does anybody know what Jezreel means? The Lord scatters or the Lord sows. And I want to point out those two meanings because when you sow, you scatter seed. So you can see how that means the same thing. But in the way that it's going to be used in this passage, it's a play on words here. Because God's going to scatter Israel, but then later it's going to come back and it's going to be talking about, but the Lord sows. So when you think of scattering, does that have a positive or negative connotation? Negative. When you think of sowing, does that have a positive or negative connotation? Positive. And so God's going to use that both times. One other thing that I want to point out here, she bore him a son with this first child. Okay, so this is his son, and the Lord tells him to name him. The Lord scatters because I'm going to avenge the house of Jehu.
Yes. So, playing off of that, you look down at
Verse 6.
Yes, verse 6. Thank you. With the daughter. So it says she conceived again and bore a daughter. All right. And so, what were you pointing out just a second ago?
Did she bear him a daughter? It doesn't specify that, so maybe there's some question with this one.
And maybe the next one won't be as much of a question. But this one, what are we to name the daughter? No mercy. Why? Because there is no more mercy, right? So maybe with the first one, you're like, okay, that's still more of a name. It's like, this one's not as much of a name. This is more of a description. And not a pleasant description, not probably something I guess you would typically name your children. But he does this. All right. Anything else you can say on that one?
Yeah. I just think about Hosea's family life. You take a wife that's a prostitute and name your daughter No Pity or No Mercy. I mean, it's like, wow, his family life is not going as he would ever plan it, for sure.
And there's a distinction here. I should say that too. So there is a distinction about who mercy won't be shown to, right? So it's making very clear like who we're talking to, and who are we talking to here?
House of Israel.
House of Israel, because it says, I will have mercy in the house of Judah, right? So there's a distinction there. So that's probably worth noting as well. Anything before we move on to the next one? All right. So then we get to another son. All right. She conceived and bore a son. Again, doesn't say conceived and bore him a son. What's the name of the son now? Not my people. Okay. What do you think that probably means? Probably not his child, right? Saying, this is not one of mine. And then he has to name it that. But what is this representing? That's right. Israelites are no longer God's people. And again, it's because of their unfaithfulness to him. And so throughout all this, you're looking at this and it's like, it would not be easy. So it wouldn't be easy to get into this relationship. It wouldn't be easy to stay in this relationship. It wouldn't be easy to name the children the way he's being asked to name them. And yet he's doing all of this, right? So again, put yourself in Hosea's shoes. And you're thinking, this is not what he would want. This is going to be causing him hurt. And he goes through all of this.
So this is how God feels about the northern kingdom of Israel. All right, that needs to be clear in our minds as we go into verse 10, because in verse 10 there's this transition where he says, "Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea." And I don't think that he's talking about the physical nation of Israel anymore. I think now he's saying, "But I will have my people." Israel's not turning out to be my people, but I will have my people. And I'm going to be with them, and they're going to be faithful to me. And so who do you think that's talking about? Yes, us. We are Israel. We are the Israel that God was looking for. The physical nation's not turning out the way that God wanted it to, but he says, I will have my people.
It almost sounds like he's still trying to talk to them about what he needs to, but he says he's going to utterly wrong.
Yeah. So we were talking about this being at the tipping point, and it really is. Does God know which way it's going to go? He does. But he's still pleading with them. It's possible to turn this around, but they're not going to. And but you're right.
Yeah, I think and maybe we don't get too much into it right now, but I think what we're seeing in that is just different aspects of God's personality. Mm-hmm. And it's like he takes obedience seriously, but he does desire it, and he wants to try to convince them of it.
And, I was thinking about Hosea being a prophet. Well, he knows what the law says about marriage and the type wife and what's supposed to happen to prostitutes and stuff like that. But yet he follows God's plan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, so chapter 2.
Hold on. Can I say something? Yes. Verse 10, this is quoted in the New Testament in Romans, and also the concept in 1 Peter chapter 2. In the place where it was said to them, you are not my people, there it will be said, you are the sons of the living God. The children of Judah and the children of Israel shall be gathered together and appoint themselves one head. Who's the one head? Christ, that's right. And so the fulfillment, the culmination of this is the Messianic kingdom under Christ that he's looking forward to. That's the people he's going to have. I'm sorry.
No, it's good.
And one other point, and it shall come, for great will be the day of Jezreel. What does Jezreel mean?
So,
Sowing. Yeah, so now it's a positive connotation where before it was scattered. I'm sorry, Timmy. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
How is the innumerable people going to come about from the sowing and the scattering?
Yes. Very good.
So that ends last week.
Yes.
Or last class.
Good point. Thank you.
all right. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
All
done.
right. So, chapter 2. So it says, say to your brothers, you are my people, and to your sisters, you have received mercy. Plead with your mother, plead, for she is not my wife, and I am not her husband, that she put away her whoring from her face, and her adultery from between her breasts, lest I strip her naked, and make her as in the day she was born, and make her like a wilderness, and make her like a parched land, and kill her with thirst. Upon her children also I will have no mercy, because they are children of whoredom. For their mother has played the whore, she who conceived them has acted shamefully. For she said, I will go after my lovers, who give me my bread and my water, my wool and my flax, my oil and my drink. Therefore I will hedge up her way with thorns, and I will build a wall against her, so that she cannot find her paths. She shall pursue her lovers, but not overtake them, and she shall seek them, but not find them. Then she shall say, I will go and return to my first husband, for it is better for me then than now. And she did not know that it was I who gave her the grain, the wine, the oil, and who lavished on her silver and gold, which they used for Baal. Therefore I will take back my grain in its time, and my wine in its season, and I will take away my wool and my flax, which were to cover her nakedness. Now I will uncover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and no one shall rescue her out of my hand. I will put an end to her all her mirth, her feast, her new moons, her Sabbaths, and all her appointed feast. And I will lay waste her vines and her fig trees, of which she said, these are my wages, which my lovers have given me. I will make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall devour them. And I will punish her for the feast days of the Baals, when she burned offerings to them, and adorned herself with her ring and jewelry, and went after her lovers, and forgot me, declares the Lord. Okay. So in those 13 verses, he starts off by saying what? By declaring what? Well, maybe not the very beginning, but verse 2. How does he view this relationship? Yes. Yeah, it's a broken relationship, right? Broken relationship. She's not my wife. I'm not her husband. And he's making that official, right? And what he's saying is, let's explain why this is the case. And so he starts going through and explaining why this is the case. So what are some of the things that she had done?
Chased after other men.
Yes, chased after others.
Credited others with what God has given her.
That's right. So she says other people have been good to her, but doesn't say that about the Lord. What else? It also seems like she might be, whenever some of these things start not going her way, right? Because he says, okay, well, I'm going to cut off these avenues that you think these others are giving you. I'm going to cut them off. And she's like, okay, well, now I'm going to try to come back, right? So she's taking him for granted and thinks she can just use him however she wants. Which, again, when we're thinking about this representing Israel, it's like, this is exactly what they would do, right? When things are going their way, it's like, oh, look at what all these other gods are doing for us. When it doesn't go their way, they're like, well, God, give us some more. We're gonna come back to you. Give us some more. It's like, that's not how this is supposed to work, right? That's not how this relationship between God and his people are supposed to work. And that's what he's declaring here. Anything you want to say about that?
How do you think Hosea, as he's talking to the people and revealing this to the people, do you think he's invested in this message? Man, you talk about a prophet who could speak with passion on this subject. And that's exactly what God wanted. He wanted a prophet that could speak with passion on this because God feels strongly about this. And Hosea feels strongly about this because he's living through it. And so his message to Israel as he's describing this. And right now, it's prosperous in Israel under Jeroboam II. And what are they doing? They're going and thanking Baal for it. And it breaks God's heart. And
so in the 3 prophets we've looked at, you almost have a progression, right? It's like we started with Jonah. How passionate was Jonah about sending that message?
not
right?
at all.
Then you have Amos, and it's like he does, but we also said maybe he didn't get it fully. He's like, he didn't get Israel's sin, so he's like, please relent, please relent. But here Hosea, he's going to be very passionate about it because he does get it completely.
That's right.
So that's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was on purpose, but that's how it worked out. So then I'll say this. Again, these are going to be themes we're going to see all the way throughout. He's going to explain what he's done. He's going to explain how they've acted. And then you're going to have something like we have in verse 13. And so he ends in verse 13 and says, like, so here's the conclusion. What's going to happen?
I'm going to punish her.
Yeah, punish her. And then, again, all this is going to be kind of almost cyclical because he says, here's the explanation, and then I'm going to punish her for the feast days of the Baals, right? So even in the punishment, he's going to, go back and explain. So if you come away from Hosea not understanding what God's message is, it's going to be, it's going to maybe not be his fault. It might be yours. So anything else you can say before we get to 14? All right. So 14, therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness and speak tenderly to her. And there I will give her her vineyards and make the valley of Achor a door of hope. And there she shall answer as in the days of her youth, as the time when she came out of the land of Egypt. And in that day, declares the Lord, you will call me my husband, and no longer will you call me my Baal. For I will remove the names of the Baals from her mouth, and they shall be remembered by name no more. And I will make for them a covenant on that day with the beasts of the field, the birds of the heavens, and the creeping things of the ground. And I will abolish the bow, the sword, and war from the land, and I will make you lie down in safety. I will betroth you to me forever. I will betroth you to me in righteousness and in justice, in steadfast love and in mercy. I will betroth you to me in faithfulness, and you shall know the Lord. And in that day I will answer, declares the Lord. I will answer the heavens, and they shall answer the earth. And the earth shall answer the grain, the wine, and the oil, and they shall answer Jezreel. And I will sow her for myself in the land, and I will have mercy on no mercy. And I will say to not my people, you are my people. And he shall say, you are my God. So what are we describing here in the last part of this chapter here? Yes. That's right. So in the first half, you're describing the separation, right? So here's why this is broken apart. Here's why we're separated, because you're going after other gods. And then here what we have is we have them coming back together. And it's why. Yeah, it's mercy. But is it just because...
It's God's effort. He's the one that is taking the initiative to allure her back.
Yes. So I'm thinking, what's their part in it, though?
Well, yeah.
Right. They have to accept, right? God has been merciful, but he's saying that time is at an end, right? That's the whole point of saying no mercies, because he's been merciful. But he's saying, if we're going to have mercy again, and if you're going to be my people again, it is going to be contingent on you saying, okay, no more Baals. Right. Nothing else. Only you.
In verse 19, I like verse 19. I will betroth you to me forever. Yes, I will betroth you to me in righteousness and justice and loving kindness and mercy. So that's part of God's, but he's talking about this is what the relationship is going to be like, not just one-sided on this, but what both of us. I will betroth you in faithfulness, and you shall know that I'm the Lord.
Is that verse 20 there, and you shall know the Lord, is that kind of contrasting, Israel's current state? They're born into a covenant relationship. This new one you're going to have to know the Lord.
We certainly see that in Jeremiah 31, so I think that, yes.
This is kind of seeming like maybe that's touching bases with that.
I think that you're probably right in the connection there. But, throughout Hosea, there's also this problem of they don't know him. They don't have the knowledge of God that they should have. We'll see that come up. My people are destroyed. That's right.
It began in chapter 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back to verse 8. She did not know that it was I who gave her the grain.
Yes.
And then she used it for Baal.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
But now she's going to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? All right, chapter 3. And the Lord said to me, go again, love a woman who is loved by another man and is an adulteress, even as the Lord loves the children of Israel, though they turn to other gods and love cakes of raisins. So I bought her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and a lethech of barley. And I said to her, you must dwell as mine for many days. You shall not play the whore or belong to another man. So I will also be to you. For the children of Israel shall dwell many days without king or prince, without sacrifice or pillar, without ephod or household gods. Afterward, the children of Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God and David their king, and they shall come in fear to the Lord and to his goodness in the latter days. Okay, so we're going to kind of wrap up the narrative here. What is Hosea being asked to do now? Oh, maybe I should say that. I didn't say this. So what has evidently happened?
They divorced. There was that separation.
So, yeah, so she's left, right? She's with someone else. And then what is he being asked to do? Yes, take her back. And not only take her back, but you're talking about buy her back. Yes, that's exactly right. I don't know. Maybe I'll go into this. So what's another word we might use for buying something back? Redeeming it, right? That might be relevant to some of the things we're going to talk about here. So he's going to have to buy her back. He's going to have to redeem her. And then what's the deal?
She has to stay with him.
That's right. So the deal is you have to be faithful, right? You have to be faithful, which is, again, it's what he's desiring all along the way, what he's rejected her for in the past.
I've heard someone describe that the way that they would understand that this would work for him to buy her back from someone is almost as if she's working for a pimp, and so he kind of has control of her, and so he's having to pay off the pimp in order to get his wife back. And if that's the case, you see how distasteful this whole thing is. And that certainly fits with what we see going on. And God's saying, that's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to take you back. I'm willing to buy you back and redeem you to myself. And Hosea is having to live this. I don't know if Hosea feels like buying Gomer back or not, but God tells him to, and so he does.
That's right.
That's the comparison then the children of Israel, they're going to be going into captivity.
Right. So that's what we're seeing in verse 4, right? Or
Yeah. My understanding of what's going on here is like, okay, you're coming back, but things are not going to, our relationship is not going to be like a normal marital relationship until faithfulness has been proved, until you show something. And so I think that this period where they're going into captivity and they won't have a king and all of that is an opportunity. God is waiting to see this desire. Okay, I want to come back. I want to be faithful to you. He's waiting for that. So I think that's describing that period of time that they'll be in captivity.
And to go along with your talking about, like, them saying they want to be faithful, right? So in verse 5, Israel shall return and seek the Lord their God, right? So that would be their desire. What do you think we should make of David, their king, there?
David said he would reign on earth forever under Christ.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. So, anything you want to say about that?
No, you notice the phrase here also, in the latter days.
Mm-hmm.
That's a messianic phrase, when we're looking forward to that time.
At the very end there.
At the very end.
Yep. All right.
You mentioned that the condition was her faithfulness. In verse 3 there, it says, so I also be to you.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be faithful too. God
Yes.
That's right. Which is
It's a two-way street.
yes, but you would almost think he almost wouldn't have to say that part because he already has been. But you're exactly right. It is a covenant.
I'll mention this. You've already seen it even in the first 3 chapters that there's this cyclical idea. In other words, we're looking at the unfaithfulness, then we're looking at the restoration of the relationship, and then we're back to unfaithfulness again, and then the restoration of that's going to loop over a number of times. So don't get too confused with, okay, well, is this just all of these separate events? I think it's dealing with those topics over and over and over again as we go through here. Because in chapter 4, as we begin chapter 4, God's bringing charges again against Israel. Well, he just brought charges in chapter 2. But I think it's just that cyclical argument all the way through the book.
Yeah. So in chapter 4, I think you're exactly right that verse 1 does a good job of kind of setting up what's going to happen pretty much the rest of the time. Hear the word of the Lord, O children of Israel, for the Lord has controversy with the inhabitants of the land. There is no faithfulness or steadfast love and no knowledge of God in the land. I think, again, that's going to do a great job of kind of setting up what the rest of this is all going to be about. So God has a bone to pick with you, and it's because you're unfaithful, and it's because you don't know him and you don't love him. And that's going to be the problem. And then he's going to talk about why, why this is the case, and he's going to talk about how this shows up. He's going to talk about his efforts in this. But that's the central core of everything right there, is you're unfaithful, you don't know. Anything to say about that before we start getting into it?
No.
Okay. All right. So what we see is that I would look at verses 4 through 6. So in verses 4 through 6, so we have the nation kind of as a whole called out. In 4 through 6, I think we have one of the reasons about why they're in the place that they're at. So it says, let no one contend. So these accusations, right, about who they are and what they've done and the evil that they're in and the punishment they deserve. Let no one contend and let none accuse, for with you is my contention. Who? Priest. It's like, what? You would think out of everybody in the land, who would you not have a contention with? The priest, right? The ones who are supposed to be part of the worship, part of leading the people spiritually. You shall stumble by day. The prophet shall also shall stumble with you by night. And I will destroy your mother. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because you have rejected knowledge, I reject you from being a priest to me. And since you have forgotten the law of your God, I also will forget your children. And so here we have what the crime is, right? So what's his contention with the priest here and the prophets? That's right. They are not teaching the people the law. So when we have this idea, they don't know me, their knowledge of it now don't get me wrong, this is their fault too. But it's like the priests aren't doing their job. The priests have a job to let the people know, and they're rejecting that. And evidently some prophets are doing this as well.
Why might that be a problem in Israel? Why might that be a problem in the northern kingdom of Israel?
You mean why might this have happened in Israel?
Yeah, they haven't followed God's law at all on who can be priest, and they've already changed the time of worship and the object of worship and the places of worship, and so the priests that are established there were established based upon a concept foreign to God's will to begin with, and so it's not surprising that they're not teaching the people accurately the law of the Lord.
It's not like individually, they have copies of word of Lord like we do.
Yes.
That's a luxury.
Yes.
That we have today. They didn't have, and so they were completely reliant on their teachers or the priests.
Yeah. So I do want to make this point here, and it's a little bit aside, but the application of it is we do have copies of the law of the Lord, and God's people are still destroyed for a lack of knowledge, and that's just because we allow them to collect dust, or we only point out the things that we like or whatever. We don't look at the whole counsel of God. The knowledge of God's law is critical to our faithfulness to God. And so people who talk about, well, I just love Jesus, but they don't know the Scripture, they're going to have a very, very difficult time being faithful to Jesus because they don't know what God's will is. They don't know who Jesus really is. And
They just follow that priest or that preacher. They're not actually digging in and finding out why.
that's right.
I think somebody preached there was talking about, and it said, the preachers get up there with all that energy and hollering. Everybody gets caught up in that. But are you really learning anything? Are you really, and that's still happening today.
That's right.
And they were all just following, listening to one person that wasn't really true.
That's right. Very good.
I've got a question also. If your understanding, your concept of Jesus is not correct, are we just creating an idol?
Well,
I love Jesus,
Yeah.
but all we're thinking of is mercy, forgiveness. We're not thinking of anything else. We're not thinking about His laws, stipulations.
So you're thinking maybe about like the golden calf specifically, right? It's supposed to represent God, but not.
Yeah.
when they went to Dan and Bethel to worship those golden calves, they were worshiping Yahweh.
They thought.
But that was not. That was not Yahweh.
We do the same thing today.
Yes.
understanding of Jesus according to Scripture, I mean, are we not doing the exact same thing?
Yes. We're creating our own God. That's right. I think you're right.
But I mean, it's really not God.
Right.
You know, it's not really Christ if we're picking out the highlights.
Yep.
You know, the things that, like you said, we like,
Mm-hmm.
the good things, and we're not creating a complete picture. Then it's complete fabrication.
Yep. That is
We
right.
could put the label on it, but it doesn't make it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very good.
All right. So starting in verse 7 here, this is where we're going to start summarizing probably a lot more. So in verse 7 through 11, what you're seeing, and you see this summed up nicely in verse 7. God blesses, and they use the blessings to sin even more, right? So the more he blesses, the more they sin. And so what he says is, I will change their glory into shame. And so basically saying they're not going to get satisfaction from the plenty anymore. So they may have food, but it won't be enough. They may try to have children, but they won't be able to have children. The good that they had, they won't have anymore, right? Because they're not using it the way they ought to. So you see him talk about that, about how he's blessed and they're misusing it. Anything to say about that for us, the first 12?
Pride comes before the fall.
Yeah, we'll see pride throughout all of this too. Verse 12. So, did you want to say something?
Well, I'll take that section.
Okay.
So, verse 11 and 12, we see this idolatry that's being practiced here. And verse 13 talks about they sacrifice on the mountains and they do all of these things. But then notice the last part of verse 13. It talks about, therefore your daughters commit harlotry and your brides commit adultery. So here are these men going out and worshiping these idols, being unfaithful to God. And how do you think they feel about their daughters being promiscuous or their wives being unfaithful? Oh, like, what's this world coming to? Can you believe the way these people are acting? Well, why are they acting this way? They're the ones who set the example of this. And
It's a natural consequence.
Natural consequences. So God says, I will not punish your daughters when they commit a harlotry. Well, something should be done about all this wickedness. You're setting the example for it. You're the one starting this pattern. And so you look at the end of verse 14 there. Therefore, people who do not understand will be trampled. And you go back to that understanding of God's law, of God's righteousness. They don't grasp that. And so what's happening is, yes, the society is degenerating very quickly. And they recognize the problems. And what do you hear in our society? What do you hear people complain about all the time? Can you believe all the terrible things that are happening everywhere? Well, are you looking to God's word as the standard? Are you trying to live your life by? And many times people are not, but they don't like the consequences of where it leads.
So everything we've talked about in chapter 4 so far is, again, a good summary of saying lack of knowledge, right? They don't know God and they're unfaithful to him. So you see that, with the priest, and you see it with the idols here. They don't know him and they're not faithful to him. When we get to the end of the chapter, what you see is he talks about how he does not want that to affect Judah, right? Mm-hmm. Judah's not tainted by this right now, and Israel's not going to change, right? Israel's not going to turn from this. So he wants Israel to leave Judah alone, and he wants Israel just to face the consequences on their own. And it's interesting that we have that there, because this is a letter mainly directed at Israel. But even in this, he's saying, now don't get Judah caught up in this, but take your own punishment, I guess.
Nope.
Anything on that before we get in chapter 5?
Nope.
Okay. Chapter 5.
So the priests were not supposed to marry a prostitute. But did they even know what Hosea did was wrong? They are lacking knowledge of the law, right? You see how it plays into what we're reading?
Was Hosea a priest?
I don't know, but Leviticus says a priest is not.
That's right. Yes.
I know he's a prophet, but I'm not sure he's a priest.
Right. Yeah.
I can see them looking at Hosea. Look what you did. You married a prostitute.
Right.
They can't even say that.
Yeah. Right.
Or it could
plus,
be.
we're supposed to kill a person that commits adultery.
Yes.
So they don't know the law.
Right.
But a lot plays in that priest not knowing the law and Hosea in that marriage.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They can't see it.
Right.
All right, so chapter 5. So in chapter 5, he starts off and he says, "Hear this, O priest, pay attention, O house of Israel. Give ear, O house of the king, for judgment is for you have been a snare at Mizpah and a net spread upon Tabor." So again, you have kind of the authorities talked about here. So priest, king, and then the whole house of Israel. And it's like, judgment is for you, right? So you have this declaration because they've been a snare, because God knows of their sin, because of their faithlessness. Then what you're going to have is, I'm going to summarize a lot of this.
Okay.
Is that okay? So then what you're going to have is you're going to have God proclaiming judgment. He talks about he's going to pour out his wrath. He's going to crush them. And you see that he says Israel's going to go to Assyria. Or not Israel. He's not going to send them to Assyria. But Israel's going to go to Assyria for help. But Assyria's not going to be able to help. And again, we're going to see this kind of come up at least a couple of times where Israel's trying to call out to other nations. And who should they be calling out to? The Lord. But again, you have this repeated idea. They look to their gods. If their gods aren't working, then they look to other nations. They're not looking where they ought to be looking. Mm-hmm. And so you have this here as well. So they're looking to Assyria, but Assyria can't help. And then what you have is you have God talk about in verse 14. So I'm at the end here. So verse 14. "For I will be like a lion to Ephraim." Well, how's that going to go? You think that means a good thing? No, it's a bad thing. This is destruction. He talks about he's going to tear them apart. And you get to verse 15. "And I will return again to my place," which I think he's talking about. I'm going to bring judgment, and then I'm going to leave them alone until they acknowledge their guilt and seek my face, and in their distress earnestly seek me. So again, I think what you have here is just saying, look, judgment's coming, and I'm not gonna bail you out of this. I'm not bringing you out of this until what? Yes, until you seek me, until you know me, and you acknowledge your guilt too, right? Yeah. You acknowledge your sin.
Yeah, God had done all he could do, and it was really up to them at this point. Let me point out just a couple of verses here. Verse 4, "They do not direct their deeds towards turning to God, for the spirit of harlotry is in their midst, and they do not know the Lord." So there's that phrase, that idea again. They don't know God, but they don't direct their deeds toward turning to the Lord. That's not even in their mindset. That's not where their heart is. That's not their spirit is that of harlotry and unfaithfulness. They're not even thinking about turning back to God. But then look at verse 11, and I know different versions may read a little differently here. "Ephraim is oppressed and broken in judgment because he willingly walked by" what? New King James says human precept. Does anybody have a human is supplied there because in the context, that's what it's talking about. How is Ephraim or Israel walking by human precept? Jeroboam. They continued in the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat.
Verse 11 says human precept.
Mm-hmm. What does yours say?
He says he was determined to go after filth.
Okay.
Go back to that verse 4. King James says they will not frame their duties to turn unto their God. They were set in their way.
Mm-hmm.
No change.
That's right. Yep.
All right. Ready for chapter 6?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Chapter 6. So I'm going to read the first 3 verses here because I think they're pretty important. "Come, let us return to the Lord, for he has torn us, that he may heal us. He has struck us down, and he will bind us up. After 2 days he will revive us, and on the 3rd day he will raise us up, that we may live before him. Let us press on to know the Lord. His going out is sure as the dawn. He will come to us as the showers, as the spring rains that water the earth." Okay, so what you have here is a call to do what?
Seek God.
Yes. So, and you have two things here, right? Return to him, right? Return to him, and then mine said, press on to know him, right? So the idea is that you're really pushing for this. It's not something you're like, yeah, okay, like we'd like you to fix it, right? I mean, it says here he will, right? But you're pressing on to know him. So this is something that's not just make everything better. It's, I want to be in a relationship again with you.
Yeah, so you remember Paul would talk in Acts chapter 17. He would talk about the idea of that we might seek the Lord, that we might grope and find him, though he's not far from each one of us. And that's what we were created for. We were created for to seek the Lord, and he wants to be found by us. But the New King James says, let us pursue the knowledge of the Lord. Well, that's what they've been lacking here. And so Hosea's call to the people is, look, if you'll put forth the effort to try to find God, he can be found. You can return to him. And it starts with the knowledge of him.
Then you get to verse 4, and he says, "What shall I do with you?"
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is, I think, exactly right. He's like, look at everything I've done. I'm trying to call you back. I've tried to bless you. You haven't responded. What am I supposed to do with you? Then you look down at verse 6. Okay.
Yeah, can I just look at the analogy that he uses? Okay. Your faithfulness is like a morning cloud, like the early dew, it goes away. About how long you remain faithful to me is about how long the dew remains on the grass in the morning. And can you hear God's broken heart in this? What can I do with you? You won't stay faithful anytime at all. And so I think that's a telling analogy there.
So verse 6 is important. For I desire steadfast love and not sacrifice, the knowledge of God rather than burnt offerings. But like Adam, they transgressed the covenant. There they dealt faithlessly with me. Gilead is a city of evildoers, tracked with blood. As robbers lie in wait for a man, so the priests band together. They murder on the way to Shechem. They commit villainy. In the house of Israel I have seen a horrible thing. Ephraim's whoredom is there. Israel is defiled. Now, again, this is the same kind of thing that we've been talking about, this cycle. What does he want? Yes, he wants love. He wants knowledge. Is that what's happening right now? No, right? So again, you're seeing he's making a plea. This is what I want. This is what I want. But this is what I'm seeing, right? This is what I want, but this is what I'm seeing. And some of the things that are talked about here, just talking about like how horrible it is. Again, probably the line that I look at the most and I think about is as robbers lie in wait for a man, so the priests band together, right? It's like this is how far it goes, where it's not just those you expect to be. Might have said villains, not those who expect to be villains, but it's like the priests are engaged in this as well. And so he says what he really wants in this, which, by the way, sounds familiar to other things we've read in the Bible, but that's not what he's seeing right now.
Yeah.
So warning Judah in these last chapters,
Yes.
Yes.
We got just a minute here. I don't know if we have time to get into another chapter or not. So let me just make this point because I think this is telling. This is all directed at Israel. Israel is the leader in this wickedness. Out of the two kingdoms, Judah and Israel, Israel is taking the lead in wickedness. And now God is saying, all right, it's time for your discipline. It's time for your punishment. Now, if you've got two children and one of them does something that's wrong and gets in trouble for it and gets chastened for it, what should the other child, what would a wise sibling do? Learn from that. You watch your big brother getting in trouble for this, and you think, okay, I'm not going to do that. And what God is doing is he's looking over to Judah and saying, now pay attention here. Pay attention what Israel's done and now what they're getting so that you don't do that. And that's that you see that call in Hosea. Any final thoughts?
I have a question. It's kind of this. Hosea's talking to them now. And the people,
Yeah.
God has to talk to them. Someone.
Yeah, so what you have in Hosea is you have kind of his own story taking place and then what he's telling the people for God as well. And so it kind of bounces back and forth in those first chapters in particular. Yeah. All right, I'll say this. Obviously, next time we'll have to finish up Hosea. Go ahead and start reading Isaiah. Isaiah has 66 chapters. I know it'll be very difficult to read it all. We're going to try to summarize it in 2 to 3 lessons or so.
Every verse of it.
Yeah, every verse of it. But read as much as you can, or at least scan it, listen to it on audio, whatever helps you to absorb as much of it as you can before we get into that. Thank you. Thanks for watching. If you found this video to be beneficial, please follow us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Feel free to share it with others that you feel like may benefit from it. If you need to contact us, please contact us via email at quinn.church@yahoo.com. Also, if you're in the area, we would love for you to come visit with us at one of our assemblies. Have a good day.